Welcome to The Explainer. We have got a massive, epic journey ahead of us today, spanning over 1,000 years of human history. We're going to be tracing this breathtaking arc, starting all the way back in the harsh deserts of 7th century Arabia and traveling right up to the incredibly wealthy globe-spanning empires of the early modern world. It is a wild story, full of explosive expansion, unparalleled intellectual breakthroughs, devastating collapses, and magnificent rebirths. Think about this for a second. How on earth does a 7th century movement, starting right in the middle of a desert, somehow evolve to create the world's most advanced scientific, economic, and cultural centers? Well, we are going to unpack the exact steps of that journey, from the Arabian Peninsula to true global superpower status, and make this whole complex evolution crystal clear.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. We'll start with the inception of Islam, move on to the expansion of the caliphates, explore the Islamic Golden Age, navigate through invasions and the Renaissance, and finally, look at the gunpowder empires.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the inception of Islam.
To really get how all this kicked off, you kind of have to look at the vibe of late antiquity in the Middle East. Pre-Islamic Arabia, it was this incredible melting pot. You had traditional Arab pagan polytheism centered around the Kaaba in Mecca, which was a huge deal for pilgrimage and trade. But you also had a lot of influence from Judaism and Christianity spreading through the area. Plus, there were the Hanif, these folks seeking a pure monotheistic faith tied back to the patriarch Abraham. And all this religious churning was happening right in Mecca, this bustling, wealthy caravan trading hub where ideas were swapped just as often as goods. That exact mix of religion and economics completely set the stage for Muhammad's message.
From there, things moved at absolute lightning speed. According to traditional accounts, in 610 CE, Muhammad gets what Muslims consider his first divine revelations, calling for strict monotheism and social justice. Now, the Meccan elites didn't love this. Their trade relied on pagan pilgrimages. So, facing persecution, Muhammad and his followers migrate to Medina in 622 CE. That event is the Hijra, and it actually kicks off the Islamic calendar. Over just the next decade, through a mix of diplomacy and conflict, he unifies the tribes, returning to secure Mecca in 630 CE. By the time he passes away in 632 CE, pretty much the entire Arabian Peninsula is unified under this brand new faith.
Which brings us to an era of just explosive growth. Section 2, expansion of the caliphates.
So, what actually happens when Muhammad dies? Well, the community obviously needed a new leader, which gives us the concept of the caliphate. Basically, a caliphate is a political religious state governed by a caliph, which literally means successor. The first four are known in Sunni Islam as the Rashidun, or rightly guided caliphs. Now, it's worth pointing out that this whole question of succession is what led to the enduring split between Sunni and Shia Muslims, essentially a debate over whether the caliph should be elected or come straight from Muhammad's bloodline. But honestly, regardless of those internal divides, the external momentum of the caliphate was just unstoppable.
Watch how this momentum just snowballs across 3 distinct eras. First up, the Rashidun caliphs launched early conquests that rapidly took over Persia, the Levant, Egypt, and North Africa. And a lot of times, local minority populations actually helped them out, preferring the new Muslim tax system over the heavy taxes of the Byzantine and Sassanid empires. Then came the Umayyads, pushing the borders to an absolute macro scale, from Spain all the way to the Indus River. Finally, you get the Abbasids. Capitalizing on people being pretty fed up with Umayyad luxury, they launched a revolution, moved the capital eastward to Baghdad, and completely set the stage for an incredible cultural shift. But before we move past the Umayyads, we really need to grasp their scale. They were a total military and economic juggernaut. I mean, they built the strongest navy of their era to lock down the Mediterranean and push into the Iberian Peninsula. But, and this is the fascinating historical lesson here, all that wealth, luxury, and massive military spending actually planted the seeds of their own downfall. Non-Arab Muslims felt like second-class citizens even though they were paying taxes, so they teamed up with other frustrated groups and fueled that Abbasid revolution in 750 CE.
That Abbasid takeover brings us to our next chapter, Section 3, the Islamic Golden Age.
Now, what's really interesting about this next bit is how it totally shatters a lot of modern assumptions about medieval history. Under the Abbasids, Baghdad literally became the intellectual capital of the entire world. They established the House of Wisdom, which was this legendary institution. And look at who worked there. Christian, Jewish, Sabian, and Persian scholars were all hired by the Caliphate to translate ancient Greek and Indian texts into Arabic, and then use that as a launchpad to generate entirely new, groundbreaking science. It was a true global engine of collaboration.
Because of that wild collaborative environment, you see a massive explosion of progress across, well, pretty much everything. Math, astronomy, medicine, chemistry, philosophy, it all just flourished. We're talking about heavy hitters here, polymaths like Alhazen, who completely revolutionized optics, Al-Biruni in physics, and Omar Khayyam, who made staggering contributions to math and poetry. They weren't just saving old knowledge, they were literally inventing the scientific future.
The energy back then must have been electric. As observers at the time noted, Baghdad blossomed, becoming the world's largest city. It attracted immigrants from Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Persia, and as far away as India and Spain. You see, that kind of intellectual flourishing doesn't happen in a vacuum. It was the direct result of the Abbasids' deliberate policy of relative religious tolerance, a booming economy, and building a cosmopolitan city where the smartest people from all over the known world just wanted to be.
But, history is almost never a straight line of continuous progress. That brings us to Section 4, Invasions and the Renaissance.
The 13th and 14th centuries gave us one of the craziest contrasts in human history. On one side, you had absolute devastation. Destructive Mongol invasions literally crushed traditional centers of learning, Baghdad included. Combine that with massive population wipeouts from the Black Death, and the traditional Middle Eastern heartlands were severely weakened. But out of those ashes came a rebirth. A Turco-Mongol conqueror named Timur swept through, and despite his incredibly brutal military campaigns, he ended up sparking the Timurid Renaissance in Central Asia, shifting the whole cultural center of gravity out east.
The specific things to come out of this Timurid Renaissance were just staggering. It wasn't just about surviving. It was high culture. I mean, they invented a super complex variant of chess known as Tamerlane chess. They built the massive Ulugh Observatory, pushing the global boundaries of math and astronomy further than ever. And cities like Herat and Samarkand became so wealthy and vibrant that historians actually say they rivaled Florence during the Italian Renaissance.
And the cultural heritage of that Central Asian Renaissance flows right into our final era. Section 5, the Gunpowder Empires.
Jump to the 15th and 16th centuries and you see three absolute powerhouse empires rising up at the exact same time. The Ottomans in the West, the Safavids in Persia, and the Mughals in India. So how did they all thrive simultaneously? Two huge factors: highly efficient centralized administration and mastering gunpowder. And you can literally see the legacy of their power in the architectural masterpieces they left behind. From Suleiman the Magnificent's stunning mosque in Istanbul to Shah Jahan's breathtaking Taj Mahal in India.
Zooming in on the Safavids for a second, you can really see how religion and statecraft got completely tangled up. To unite his people and create a really stark contrast against his massive Sunni Ottoman rivals to the west, Shah Ismail I mandated the conversion of Iran's largely Sunni population to Twelver Shia Islam. Geopolitically speaking, this was a massive move. It successfully united the provinces under one flag and forcefully reignited a distinct Persian identity that actually endures right down to today.
Meanwhile, over in India, the Mughals were pulling off something wild. Just think about the number 25. At its absolute peak under Mughal rule, Muslim India was the largest economy on the planet. It was generating an estimated 25% of the total global GDP. Places like Bengal were even showing early signs of proto-industrialization, with living standards that were arguably better than 18th century Western Europe. The scale of that is just mind-blowing.
Eventually, a mix of internal weaknesses and the aggressive rise of European colonialism caused these gunpowder empires to fragment. But that leaves us with a really fascinating question to chew on. As those empires faded out, how does their thousand-year legacy, the math we use every day, the astronomy that maps our skies, the art and the global trade routes they pioneered, how does all of that continue to quietly shape the very fabric of our modern world today? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.